Hey y'all, this is Will, otherwise Xelray, and today in Once Human we're going to go over building. We're going to be going over how to make an interesting looking territory so people want to come in and venture and visit and explore. How to furnish your buildings so that while they have that interest, they want to continue exploring rather than just walk away because it wasn't all that interesting. We're going to be talking about power and how to make effective power line management so that your base doesn't look like a rat nest. While you can hide your own wires, that does not hide the wires for everyone else who may visit. So realize that messy wires may look bad to a visitor because you didn't spend time working on them yourself. We're going to be looking at water management, so water pumps, how to use the smaller water pumps effectively, and how to transport water from any height to another height. We're going to be talking about gardening. Gardening is a big aspect of this game when it comes to territories. And finally, we're going to be talking about deviants and which deviants I use in my territory. A lot of people have been asking about which deviants I use, and a lot of people have been asking about a house walkthrough so they can see everything that I've done so far. So I want to wrap that into this video. So it's going to be a little bit extra, but I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet as best I can. First thing that I do want to mention is that I have bought cosmetics for my territory, and these do cost a decent amount of money. I'm not going to lie about that. I'm completely okay with supporting the devs of this game because they are making a game that's truly free to play. If you do not want to spend any money, it does not regress your progress in any way. You can still be the tip-top form with the top 1% of players without spending a dime, a nickel, a penny. But if you want to support the devs, you can buy these cosmetic packs. But do not fret if you don't have money for these cosmetic packs. Most likely you're being financially responsible and no one can try to knock you for that. So you're being wise, you're being smart, and most likely more smart than most of the rest of the people out playing this game when it comes to spending money on cosmetics. When you can, go for it. When you can't, we understand. What this game does allow you to do is say, I'm blessed with the ability to get these cosmetic packs, and Optics over there is not. I mean, he's probably more rich than I am, but he's not going to spend money on this game. He knows better, but he still wanted these glass pieces. I can build those glass pieces in his build for him, and then he can use them in his territory. It's a really cool feature, and how it works is if you press U, this is your social menu, go to friends. Optics is in my hive. You can see him right there online. He's been online all day. I know that. Not calling him out, just saying. He has a key next to his name. If you right click that, you can get a friend permission. Drop that down. You can give people access to your facilities, access to build within your territory, and access to your storage chest to be able to use the items that you have gathered. Having these all enabled among people that you trust is no big deal, but if someone is willing to build something for you, you might as well click on, for the time being, the building permissions and the storage permissions. Optics has the same for myself, and what that allows me to do is if I press right and then B, then right click, I had that backwards, go to manage share down in the bottom left of this menu. You can see that I have shared this light with Optics, and I've shared the entire steel frame glass sunroom set with Optics. This means I can build these in his territory. He cannot build them within his own territory. He has to ask me to put these in his territory, but he can still use them in his build. And I can share this with up to 4 different individuals. So really, while it is a purchasable cosmetic, not everyone has to buy it, and I think this is a very nice and fair thing for the devs to do to make it not feel like they're being money grubbers. And I appreciate that. I do think that they're being a good sport for the community by doing that, because they very easily could have, and some people would say even should have, made it so that not everyone can use it unless they buy it. The first thing of this video that I really want to talk about is silhouetting of your house. Imagine my territory is in black and white. My buildings are black and the background is white. The shape that your house gives off garners interest. So having multiple buildings, having interesting shapes, having cool features definitely brings interest from the outside audience. If someone's walking by and they take a look at the house, they say, whoa, this guy got something going on. I kind of want to go in there and check it out. That's called luring unsuspecting prey. And that's what my goal is. I want people to come into my territory and explore and walk around and say, oh, this is cool. I want this. I want to do something like that. And it gives them inspiration. When it comes to building in games, that's one of my main goals. And maybe for some of you it is too. But I enjoy doing that. Taking a look at Optic's build here, he has not only one pyramid. A single pyramid would actually be quite boring, don't you think? It's just a point. But having a second pyramid looks really, really cool. Having a building in back that isn't a pyramid causes this change to occur. And it brings a little bit of intrigue and interest, so you might want to explore it. So, you know, that's interesting. If we look on this little skyline, this first building, even though small, has a lot of lines and interest, so you might want to go up there and take a look at it. Same thing with this closest one, where it has that inset patio area, and you see some shape, you see the spiral staircase. Now, I'm sure the person with the basic wood house has an amazing facility inside, but it also doesn't catch interest to the outsider, right? You just see a big wooden house and you go on to the next thing that looks maybe more interesting. So having a good silhouette for your house is absolutely important for people finding that your house looks interesting, because it's not the same box shape that everyone else has. The next thing is furnishing it so people find it interesting. And I feel like this can be kind of difficult, and this is where a lot of imagination is needed. But by putting plants out on the walkways, and like this walkway looks kind of barren, and nothing's going on, so it's not really capturing any intrigue, which I don't really need it to, because this centerpiece is. So you go in here, you have a fireplace, you have walkways, you have chairs to sit in, rather benches to sit in. They're angled kind of funny, so they're not all the same, so they're not completely symmetrical. In spirit, they're symmetrical, but they're all a little bit different, and I feel like that is what real life is. Nothing's perfect, and having things a little bit off from each other, even though they are built in the same type of way, makes it so that it feels more relaxing and easygoing rather than rigid and strict, which I feel once you get into that rigid and strict mindset, you tend to be more off-putting and unwelcoming compared to something like this that might be a little bit more welcoming. We got the wind chimes in the background for some added pleasant sound, and these walls of ivy just to create something a little bit thicker and less even than the glass walls. So intrigue and being able to have something look interesting by changing the dimensionality of an item is really, really nice. Just like even this walkway, you go in, there's some lattice and some plants. It just makes it pop a little bit rather than being plain in a wall, and because it is sticking out a little bit, it gives you that extra sense of depth. This also happens here on my front porch, as this is supposed to be the front, believe it or not, even though we have carcasses of animals from the Lethal Rabbit and Digby going to town on that little rock of his. We're going to give him a pet to make him shut up and he'll disappear, I bet. Come on, jump up and go away, Digby boy. Go elsewhere. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we have the lights coming in, drawing you inside. We have this little fountain, which just sounds nice. I mean, visually, it's a little bit interesting, but if you've seen it, it's always the same one. On the right, I do have a nice table with a whole bunch of things to look at. A little cat that has a moving hand, has a beer bottle. But this is another thing I want to say. We have a centerpiece of a fire bowl here. And this fire bowl, if every single chair was directly facing it, it wouldn't really look realistic. In real life settings, you have a fire and you sit around the fire and you talk to your friends, right? So having chairs that are looking at everyone else is a good way to provide that sense of realism and, you know, just easygoingness that makes sense. I personally like those little touches when I can add them in, and I think they offer a lot towards like your own rating when other people are looking and mentally scoring what you've built. Now, I'm not by no means perfect at doing this, but I find that these things do help. In this bottom level, this is really just a kitchen. Believe it or not, like you know, maybe a living room and kitchen, but it's mainly a kitchen. I have a big bar table here, and I can talk about how I made that here in a second. I have my kitchen set. I have some fish on the outside that allow it to look nice. I have my fridge over here. I have some wallpaper, not necessarily wallpaper, but posters that kind of fit the food theme. I have beer bottles on the bar, so when people are sitting talking to each other, it looks maybe a little bit more correct. We even have extra beer bottles over there to give the sense of like you can always ask for another. We have seating areas, even the wish machine. I try to make the wish machine because it has little toys, have a little bit more of that presence. We have cardboard boxes that are wrapped, and then you have the big sheet plushie, so it kind of gives you the illusion that these are more toys waiting to be unwrapped. And a lot of people hate their territory management terminal, and they think it sticks out like a sore thumb, and I've kind of made it into this techie area with a computer and some weird tech garbage, and I think it just kind of blends into the corner that way without sticking out. So that's another thing that you can employ is hiding things in plain sight by putting likes near likes. Keeping things of similar nature near each other kind of makes it all blend together and feel correct. After this bottom floor, I do like this little privacy curtain, I did too. But after this first floor, it kind of goes into the business end of my build. And I just have my workshop here. Now, it doesn't look terrible, and you can see the wires. They're roughly, cleanly put. Now, it's not perfect, but I've seen a lot worse. We have a little patio here, and this patio was literally only to make this roof look good from above. Because without it, it looked really, really weird, and I didn't like the angles, so I got rid of it and added the patio. And finally, if we go up a little bit further, you can see here it kind of makes it look nicer. If you could imagine, we had the skirts of the roof go down further. And finally, we have my 2B bedroom. I do have a bed up here, and I'm going to be working on this a little bit further, but I need a coffee table because I'm using a cardboard box for my coffee table right now. You can see I'm just moving in still, right? That's what I'm going to say at least. So with those 2 points covered, that talks about, you know, the shape of your building and the uniqueness that the shape can provide, and also how you can furnish a building and the interior to make it look more interesting and keep people really into your build and make it look and feel nice. So those were the first two pieces I really wanted to talk about. Now we're getting more into the how-to part of it, where we have electrical. So my panels here I have 7 of them, but I myself, if you look in the top right, can only make 4. I had someone else come over here and put down more electrical panels because they really dug deep in their mimetic specializations to get as much electrical usage as possible. So I'm borrowing their hard work or stealing their hard work for my own benefit. But really what I wanted to talk about is all these electrical panels are tied together through a line. And then this whole line goes up to that little terminal. And I have another terminal over here. And this terminal allows it so that it doesn't look like you had to walk over a wire every single time. And for example, if I were to press X to attach a wire over here, you can see that it's hanging in midair, and it just is very visually off-putting. And I don't think people like that, and that's part of the rat nest that I was saying. Now you can press L in this menu and hide all this, and darn does that look nice. But at the same time, I really like seeing the wires and seeing how much effort people put into their wires, so I prefer them on. So if I were to visit your territory and it was a rat nest, I'd be like, ooh, it's fine, I know that they're just getting the functionality, but they could have done that better. A few hints that I have found that work really well for me is bringing the wires up to the ceiling and running them along the ceiling and then running them down when you have a facility that needs power. I find that that works really well and makes everything look clean, just like it was in my workbench room upstairs that we earlier took a look at. Really, that's all there is to do with power. Try to avoid it running across your running path and try to make it look functionally representational of what would be really there. Like this goes into my greenhouse. We have a terminal that comes from here. And we do have wires coming down from the roof, which might not be the most pleasing to the eye, but they could work. Maybe what would be even better is I take these out, go and press tilde so I can enter my fly mode. And fly mode is a huge thing. It allows you to do a lot. I can take a wire here and put it here, and then that is strung to here. So that might even look better than what I had already, just by thinking a little bit more carefully about what I'm doing. So that's an easy way to just make simple changes to make your build feel a little bit more thought out, because there's nothing really in the way at that point. So that's electrical, and then we're going to get onto water. And water is a very tricky thing in this game. It's not the most tricky, but it's not very logical. And I think that's where people have trouble, because even for people who are more into construction, they understand that a pump pulls one direction and pushes the other direction. This game doesn't quite do that the same way. So I have my water pumps powered, pulling groundwater up. Sometimes when you try to pull groundwater, if your area is more, you know, not clean, you can pull up crude oil or even stardust or impure acid. And if you're in a clean area, you get water, and that's where I'm at. So I just wanted to cover that real quick too. If you go into the water, you almost always have the chance of getting clean water, unless it's in a stardust pollution zone, which is when your backpack lights up with a percentile mark, and that will pull up impure acid. That's the only time when water doesn't really do that, outside of seawater, which will pull up seawater, and that's another whole issue to deal with. But I am on a gravity-fed system, and this is the easiest system to work with. So my pumps go up to the highest point. They feed downward to my osmosis purifiers. My osmosis purifiers work down towards my storage facilities, and my storage facilities roughly work down or to the same level as my brewing containers and also my sprinklers to keep those always active. And I say roughly on the same level because it's not perfectly gravity fed. You have a little bit of leeway, and that little bit of leeway makes a big difference. So what to do when we don't have that working gravity wise? So let's take one of these osmosis machines here, and we're going to plop it down right here. And we want to bring water to this machine. And this is somewhat tricky because when you attach a wire and you attach a pipe, even though water is connected, it will never fill up. And the reason is when you're in your build mode and press B to get there, you can see that the flow of water is opposite of what it should be. It's going down to the water filter. So it's trying to bring stuff from the purifier to the water pump. And that's just not going to work. So let's take this idea and relocate this, fly up to the next level to make it very apparent how this works, because I don't want too much confusion here. Let's just put this right up here. And how are we going to bring that pump water? That's going to be what we're trying to do here. We're going to quickly get rid of, you know what I'm going to do? Excuse me. I'm going to make a new one of these. I know it's weird, but you'll see why in a second. And we're going to bring some power to this node. We're going to get rid of it later. So, you know, it's powered. We're good. Okay, so we know we can't bring water directly to it right now. We're going to need to implore in our facilities tab under function facility a water pump. And you would think that, okay, this is a water pump. It's going to pull water and push water the other direction. So it should just be as high as possible. That is a logical solution to this problem. And I think most people try that, and it's going to hinder them in the long run because this game isn't quite logical with their pumps. What the pumps do is they reverse the flow of water. So if I were to connect a water pipe to this, there we go, you can see that it pulls the water up, which is perfect. And in any normal real life circumstance, the other side would push water. But that's not how water pumps work. When we bring this to this item, if I can get it to connect, there we go. You see that the water flows upward in both directions. And this is because what the water pump does is it reverses the flow of gravity. It does not reverse the flow of water or change the flow of water. It reverses the flow of gravity. So how to fix this? Remember when I said when things are of similar levels, they tend to flow more correctly? So let's just bring this down into similar level, right about there. You can see that now it reverses the flow of gravity, so that goes up, and then it reverses the flow of gravity down, so this goes up again. There is a sweet spot, and if you place it in the wrong area, you can see right there, because it's above the point of the spigot, it will not work. So if you bring it down here, now it will work. So the relative spacing of where you put pumps is very, very important for if you're trying to flow water in a direction. And that is how it works. I think a lot of people haven't really specified that very well, and that's the actual way I found it works, is it reverses the flow of gravity. So you need to follow that idea and reverse that flow of gravity. So let's get rid of that pump, and we shouldn't be able to get rid of this because it has water in it now. We'll deal with that later. That is everything water in a nutshell. If you follow those basic principles, stay gravity fed or reverse the flow of gravity with the water pump on both sides, you'll be a-okay. On to the next topic, which is gardening. So you saw my greenhouse, you saw how this works roughly well. We have corn, aloe, and wheat growing in our garden right now, and that requires high sunlight and high irrigation, which I'll talk about those facts in a point. But I do want to say that I have 48 plots of gardening places here, and they're being fed by 4 sprinklers and 1, 2, 3, 4 lights. That's it. Lights work in a very interesting manner, and it's very logical. The higher the light is, the more the light spreads out. So if you have a light down low, it will not cover as many garden plots as if you had it high up. So that's a very important feature to understand. If your greenhouse is a little bit taller, your lights will cover more territory, and therefore you can have more plots with less lights. The same thing goes on with these automatic irrigation facilities. They have a circle of effect, which goes out to roughly the corner of my greenhouse. This means I can cover a lot of areas by covering that circle. Now, it definitely overlaps in the center, and that's no big deal. When these do overlap, it will take the, if you look at your facility, the target irrigation, whichever has the highest target irrigation, mine are both set to 80, so they're going to stay average. This plot will never receive more water than 80. And most plots will only require 70 unless you're using aloe or another high intensity plant like aloe. Everything else you can pretty much stay at 70 irrigation and pretty much grow anything you want to. When it comes to sunlight, again, aloe is a high need of sunlight, so you're going to find that it requires 90, but most plants only require 80, and 90 might be making them kind of scorched, a little bit too hot for their own good. So all you need to do is look at a plant, and it will tell you what its irrigation needs are and its lighting needs. Now you might think, well, no, this is at 80 lighting. No, 80 lighting is bad for it. Anything 81 and plus is good. However, we can only change our lights by a factor of 10. So we can have 10, 20, 30, etc., 80, 90, 100. What I have going on here is I have grow shrooms, and I also have buzzy bees. Grow shrooms are a very nice new deviant that we have in launch that allow us to give them a seed. We'll go over to this facility here. We can give them a seed of our choosing. Say we want to have them grow pumpkins, right? I can give them all my pumpkin seeds, deposit them, and then they will always grow pumpkins if there's space for them, and they'll harvest anything they can, which it did have stuff in here and I just took it all, so I'll show you that on this deviant. So we have another grow shroom, and it's planting wheat seeds, but it has harvested many things. What's cool about the harvest of these deviants is that they will never expire or turn into spoiled food until you claim them. When you claim them, you can see on the left here that I got some corn seeds, corn, and some deviated corn. So that is the grow shroom in a nutshell. Each grow shroom can only plant one seed, so if you want to plant 2 different seeds in an area, you need multiple grow shrooms. Or 2 specifically. If you needed 3, you need 3 grow shrooms. The buzzy bees will pollinate areas, and by pollinating them, they have a higher chance of turning into a deviated plant. So that's That's how Buzzy Bees work. Those are your main two powerhouses for gardening. The Fetch-a-Lot Bunny, and I might actually get rid of the Fetch-a-Lot Bunny, can give you seeds earlier. So it didn't this time, but I got some cabbage and blueberry. I don't really need more seeds, so the Fetch-a-Lot Bunny is probably going to be replaced by something else, but you can get seeds early game by them. And that is really all my gardening functionality in a nutshell. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me about anything to do with gardening, water, electricity, making a base look fun. You can even join the Discord that's in the description and maybe post your base in the general chat for Once Human, or maybe I'll make a share your base tab. I don't know. I'll figure it out. I might be lazy and not do that, but you know where you could do it either way. The last thing that people ask me is what deviants I use in my territory. We've already talked about a couple, the Grow Shroom, the Buzzy Bees, and the Fetch-a-Lot Bunny. However, there are a lot of deviants, and you can have up to 20 in your base, and deviants are broken up into multiple types. The Grow Shroom is a territory deviant. The Buzzy Bee is as well. The Harvest Seed that I have here is a crafting deviant. This allows me to make living armor potions, which allow me to stay a little bit safer longer if I make mistakes while playing the game. The Fetch-a-Lot Bunny is also a territory, and it will go out and harvest things for me. I keep a logging beaver in hopes that it will sometimes give me, oh, finally, this is my first piece of furniture I ever got from the logging beaver. Recorded live. So that, over the 3 weeks we've been playing roughly, that's the first piece of furniture I have ever gotten from the logging beaver. In my deviant video, people have been like, nah, logging beaver always drops me furniture. And I'm just saying, over 3 weeks, that's the first piece of furniture I have gotten. I know that they drop redwood chairs and rattan chairs and this other thing. That American cabinet is the first thing that actually has dropped for me from the logging beaver. Now, I only have one. Maybe if you have 6 of these, you can farm a lot more. Okay, going on to the next, I do have 2 electric eels that give more power to my solar panels, and depending on the rating of your solar of your eel that you have, it will offer more power to your solar panels. So this one has a max output of 44.6 watts when a normal solar panel will only give me 30 watts. So that has effectively increased the amount of power that one solar generator can give by over 50%, which is pretty nuts. And that can get even higher, saying you have an eel with a higher efficiency rating. I think everyone should carry 2 Digby Boys, maybe 1, but 2 I think is the sweet spot, because once I'm in endgame, I don't want to go and farm copper and tin for bronze and copper bars. I don't want to worry about steel. I know sometimes I'll have to, but if I'm building a base in a high-end area, I have sulfur, I have tungsten, and I have aluminum. So if I can focus on those for heavy farms when I need the material instead of the earlier materials, I think the Digby Boys are great at allowing me to do that. On to the next. The Lethal Rabbit, I know is very difficult to get for a lot of people because you need to, just go on a murder spree of 50 to 100 bunnies typically. But when you have the Lethal Rabbit, you get meat and rawhide is always necessary for repairing your gear. So when you're running hard difficulty things, your gear breaks down pretty quick, and you need the rawhide. So this gives me extra rawhide so I don't have to worry about repairing that much. Inside, I have the paper figure, which allows me to repair facilities in my base. So if something were to get damaged, that paper figure is going to repair them in most cases. I have by my refrigerator, and my refrigerator, while it holds food, right, it is causing the area around it to stay cool. So my polar jelly, which is going to be a build I'm working on here shortly, just as a little hint of what I'm working on, will give me, and it's a very nice polar jelly too, but it will give me what I need for my build, my Frost Vortex build I'm about to produce. And then the Lone Wolf's Whisper is going to give me what I need for my weapon damage, the Last Valor Shrapnel build. With those in mind, the other deviants I have is the H37, mainly because I have a feeling that if it's going to give it me one, yeah, it gave me a lithium crystal. I have no idea what they're for, and I'm saving them because who knows when they're going to be worth something. So that's just me being, careful and having something on hand in case I do need it as I fall down my own staircase. My bad. And on to the next level, my crafting level. I have the gingerbread house because prop hunt is a fun thing to do. This allows you to turn into something that looks natural to the area, quote unquote. And it also takes away your nameplate, so you can play hide and seek with your friends. Because if people could see where you are, you can't really play hide and seek with them. We have the Artisan's Touch, which used to be a lot better. They did patch out the ability for Artisan's Touch to be able to repair dropped items. However, it can still repair your items in the field. So if you're in the middle of a dungeon and your gun breaks, you can use the Artisan's all-purpose hand to be able to repair it without going back to base and wasting everyone's time. I think everyone should have one of these, and it is very handy for, no pun intended there, for people to use. It's going to be very, very useful. Finally, I have the space turner for the case of if you don't have friends, you really don't need the space turner. But if you do, this allows you to bring your friends to any location that they can't teleport to themselves. So if you're out in the world and for some reason later in the game they introduce like roaming field bosses, this could allow you to teleport your 3 other friends in your party to that location so that everyone can fight that thing together. Finally, for the deviants that I hang out with is the extra dimensional cat, as you can see hanging out on the top floor in my bedroom. The extra dimensional cat doesn't really do anything, but I really enjoy it nonetheless. You can pet it, right? And it purrs, which I think is awesome. I really enjoy that fact. It's like, can you pet the dog in this game? No, because there's no dog, but can you pet the cat? Hell yeah, you can. Even gets a little sunshine symbol. And finally, when you do lay down with it, it joins you and keeps you safe and warm. So it walks on over and jumps on the bed and hangs out with you, which I think is just a cool, neat little feature that they added in. This also heals you over time, so that's a secondary benefit, but really, we don't care about that. I'm sure you don't either. Okay, and that is pretty much everything I wanted to talk about and show as far as my own base and what I've done with my area and crafting and everything of that sort. I have extra synthesis benches because people come over and make acid in them, and I give them money to do so. So I never run out of acid. That requires a specialization. I know a lot of people have worried about farming acid because you need to go into an ugly area to do so, but if someone does have that specialization and you're willing to farm sulfur for them, they can come over to your house and just queue it up for sulfur and money. So you do need to pay them because it's 50 energy links per acid, but it's a lot easier than any other method I've figured out. If you guys have any questions on anything building related, ask me. I think I've really kind of deep dived into most of it and understand a lot of different things. Even this little circular little building is hellish to produce on your own, because once your staircase is in place, you cannot put up walls around it. So you have to build it in a very specific way. So if you're having trouble with clipping, or if you're wondering if you can clip 2 things together, ask me. I've probably messed with it by now. With that, that's the video. Thank you for watching. Later.